Hello everyone, welcome back to the Gaming Coach. And today, in our first major video beyond the introductions, we're going to be doing a full weapon ranking of all the guns in Project Era, which is Fortnite patch 5.41. But do note that Project Era made some changes to the actual game code, and the ranking from Season 5 kind of don't work to Project Era today. So we've got all the weapons here. Let's just go over the tiers first so you understand what we're working off of, and then we'll go from there. So let's start off with X tier. X tier is, I'm just going to say right away, no gun currently exists in X tier. X tier is like the day one P90, or even really the drum gun, you could argue. These are guns that are so unbelievably broken to the point where they define the entire game because they're just that busted. Like, they're so good, they fulfill every role. Like the day one P90, that could fulfill your AR, your SMG, your shotgun, everything. S tier is really good meta-defining guns. You know, like the Gold Spaz is a great example. Like really, really good guns, but they're not completely game-breaking. Really strong, though. A tier is like those kind of guns that are really good, like great options, class-defining, work well, but aren't completely busted in their overall well-balanced, but on the stronger side. B tier is those guns that are really perfectly balanced. They're good, but they're not bad. They're just kind of solid guns, and you could definitely use them and they're viable. C tier is for those, you know, those guns that are like meh. You don't hate to have it, but you don't love it either, and you just kind of live with it. They're okay. D tier is for the guns that are really bad, you know, like they're bad. They're not a complete joke, but they're really bad. Then F tier, you know, things like the fully automatic sniper, the original SMG that did 11 damage, you know, those kind of guns that are just really bad. You know, they're complete jokes. You put them below the pickaxe, you know, as a joke. All right, let's start with the shotguns. Now, the TAC shotgun, here's the issue with the TAC shotgun. In Season 4 in Project Era, the TAC shotgun was probably B tier, but in Season 5, I think it slipped to C. And the reason why is because the TAC shotgun really worked best as you would shoot your pump or heavy shot, right, that big damage, and then follow up with the TAC. The problem is that now, without double shotgun, you're running a shotgun SMG combo, and the TAC just doesn't do enough damage to hit that big damage before switching to the SM. Like, you're going to hit them for like 35 damage, and you got to try and SMG them from 165 to 0. That's very hard to do. And the TAC shotgun just really isn't that good. Is it the worst gun in the game? No. Is it that bad? No. But it's just kind of meh. You'll use it early game, but I try and get rid of it as quickly as possible. So C tier it is. Heavy shotgun. I really do enjoy the heavy shotgun. The heavy shotgun's got a lot of range, really good headshot damage. It's a really effective gun, and I think overall it's an A tier solid gun. Now, back in the original Season 5, before the double barrel, the heavy was the king. With the double barrel, they were pretty close, and I would still say they're both excellent competitors. If you're comparing a heavy and double barrel, you know, the double barrel, you have to work at extremely close range. You can clip people out 200 to 0, 2 shots fairly consistently, if you even have okay aim because of that massive spread. And it is even an off-meta strategy to run both of these shotguns together if you really wanted to. I think they're both really solid options, but I don't think they're the best shotguns in the game. And this is because of the pump shotgun, I think, is S tier. Now, let me explain this before you go and say, well, there's no way, because back in the day, the pump shotgun was B tier. And that's true, it was B tier. Because back in Season 5, after the draw speed buff, it had 80-85 damage, and it just wasn't that good. I think most people would say it was better than TAC. Before the draw speed buff, it was probably C tier. But with the draw speed buff, it was B tier. But in Project Era, it's S tier. And here's why. The pump shotgun does 95-100 damage. You know, that new damage that you remember from the middle and late of Chapter 1. But it keeps the old shotgun range of Season 5 and before. This is huge because it means you have the big alpha, but the damage fall-off curve is the exact same as the heavy shotgun. So it's really only the spread that's limiting your range, and it makes the pump really good. Like, the blue pump is the best gun in the game. I will defend that hill until it gets nerfed, because it is literally the best gun in the game. It's definitely a tier above the heavy and double. If you had a blue pump, you pretty much have to run that. A green pump, the heavy and double barrel are competitive, though. So just to quick rundown the shotguns. Pump shotgun is the best, heavy and double barrel are both viable, and the TAC is kind of meh. Okay, let's move on to the standard AR. Standard AR is not a bad gun. It's actually a lot better in Chapter 1 than it was in Chapter 2, 3, and 4 because it has a way tighter spread. The bloom is noticeably better. I can't find a primary source proving that, but I do remember a lot of videos at the beginning of Chapter 2 saying that bloom was massively nerfed, and I would be inclined to agree. The headshot damage, though, is definitely better, and the reload is also better. So the Grade 3 Blue AR is substantially better in Project Era than you remember in modern Fortnite. It's a great gun, but it's not A tier. It's just going to sit pretty in B tier. Scar is a step above. Obviously, that extra damage means one less shot to kill. It's a great gun, one of the best in the game. Super versatile. You can run as your AR. Works as an SMG just fine. It's a really good gun. It's iconic. Everybody knows. It's great. Now, the burst is definitely a step below. I would put the regular burst one tier below the regular AR and the FAMAS one tier below the Scar. Now, in Chapter 2, you probably remember them being pretty even, but that's not the case in Chapter 1. And the reason why is because the burst has a lower rate of fire and substantially more bloom. So, you know, the burst really kind of struggles to be super competitive. It is viable. You can make a case for the burst, but it's definitely, I think, a step below the regular ARs. Suppressed AR, I think, is the same deal. It's definitely competitive, and it's super accurate at long range. The problem is you can't really use it at close range all that effectively because that bloom while you're full auto is really bad. So it's definitely a viable option, but suppressed AR, it kind of makes you want the SMG a bit more. While the regular AR, if you have a Scar, you really don't need the SMGs. Let's move on to the Scoped AR. Scoped AR is C tier. You know, the Scoped AR is a meh gun. Like, it works. But it isn't something that really impresses me, and I don't think it impresses a lot of people. The 23-24 damage is pretty much a joke. It's really consistent, especially on mouse and keyboard. It's so consistent, the damage you can do, but it's just consistently low damage, so it's not good. And the thermal is just a tier below that. The thermal loses even more damage per second. The thermal thing is just more of a gimmick, and people say, like, oh, it's a laser, but is it really a laser if you're doing like 64 DPS? Like, yeah, it's consistent in the sense it can hit the shots, but it's not good. Don't pick this thing up. Okay, SMGs. Or before we do the SMGs, let's do a rundown of the ARs. There's 3 viable options. Regular, burst, and suppressed, with the regular being the overall best option. Similar to the shotguns. Okay, the SMGs, here's my opinion. Every single SMG is B tier. There's no SMG that really makes me think like, wow, this is like equal to the Heavy or the Scar. I don't think you can really make that argument. But what I do think, though, is that all 4 SMGs are in a really healthy position. And I think that really will make the game good in the sense that you have 4 options and you're not at a disadvantage no matter what gun you get. The standard SMG has the highest rate of fire and the highest damage per second, which means it shreds at close range, but you burn that mag quick. And it doesn't have the fastest reload, and it also has huge amounts of bloom. Silence SMG gains reload and a substantially better bloom, but it has a little lower DPS, and also the range isn't actually that much better because the damage fall-off curve, you're doing, I believe, 8 or 9 damage at long range. That's a joke. Don't bother using that thing as an AR. P90 is also a viable choice. You got a bigger mag, you have 10 rounds per second, so 4 seconds of continuous spray, but the reload's a little lower. It has a little bit better bloom than the standard SMG, but worse than the suppressed. It's good. I think it's viable. I think actually many people would take the silence and the regular over the P90, but I would take the P90. So it's really up to your personal preference. And the LMG, I think the LMG is good in some ways, but bad in others. It has the lowest DPS of any SMG. The bloom is horrendous, and it uses the same ammo as your AR, so that's not good. But the mag is massive. You can force people to waste 200, 250 mats on you by spamming this thing. And it has first shot accuracy and a better damage fall-off curve, meaning this is the only SMG that you could sort of use as an AR. It's not super effective because the bloom is so bad you have to use first shot accuracy to hit anything, but it's a decent gun. And overall, rundown for the SMGs, all 4 are viable, all 4 are awesome. I mean, they're good. I guess I wouldn't say they're awesome. They're not as good as the higher tier guns, but they're all good, and you can choose whichever one fits your playstyle. Okay, moving on to snipers. Semi-auto is D. The only thing the semi-auto is good for is if you're new to snipers and you want to learn the bullet drop and the projectile speed. Otherwise, this thing is kind of trash because it does 63 and 66 damage. And the problem is, once you hit that one shot, it doesn't fire fast enough to the point where you can hit 2 shots. So it's not like you can hit them for 120. They're just going to build a wall, and I think it's a waste of a weapon slot. I wouldn't recommend this thing. It's always been bad and probably always will be bad. Hunting rifle and bolt I'm going to do together, both in B tier. They're both really good options. They're not like amazing, but they're both good. Hunting rifle, you can one-shot. It's got a 2-second reload. Nice gun to use, but not the longest effective range because you don't have a scope. The bolt has a longer effective range, isn't useful at close range though. It does more damage but has a slower rate of fire. So they're both viable, solid options, but not like top tier. Yeah, these are really good guns like the Scar or the Pump. Heavy Sniper though is A tier. The Heavy Sniper I think is overall better because it does 150 or more damage to the body. If they have 150 health and you hit them to the body, they're dead. And not only that, this thing can one-shot walls too. So overall, I think this gun is really solid, and I really recommend you pick it up and give it a go. One thing to note though is I believe in modern Fortnite, don't quote me on this one, but I think the damage was nerfed, I know for a fact, but the reload was slightly buffed. The reload is slow. It's 4.1, 4.3, so just keep that in mind. Alright, quick rundown of the snipers, obviously. Heavy Sniper is the best, but Hunting and Bolt are both viable. Don't use the semi. Okay, Structure Destroyers. Minigun is C tier. The minigun only does 228 DPS. It takes a long time to wind up. In solos, it's really not good. Like solos, I put it in D. It's bad. In squads, though, I think it's B. So I'm just going to give it a C. It's really effective in squads because you can have one person just lay down continuous fire. But I just don't think the minigun is that good in the current meta. And until it gets that buff, which I think happened in... Shoot, was it Season 7 or Season 8? I don't remember. But just know the minigun's not that good right now. Grenade launch is B tier. The nade launch is quite good at medium range, especially if you have two of them. This thing destroys everything in its path. But it's kind of wonky, and you know, if you use that close range, those nades can be hard to get in the right position because they may bounce out of position. So I think it's a good gun, but I wouldn't say it's like tier A amazing. That I would give to the RPG. The RPG reloads quite a bit faster than it does in modern Fortnite. So it's really quite good. You can only carry 13 rockets, so you can't spam it indefinitely. But really solid gun, and I definitely think, honestly, if you find a rocket launcher, you're probably going to pick it up. So the deal with explodes is RPG is the best, nade launch is viable, and minigun is only really viable in squads and maybe duos. Okay, let's round it off with the pistols. So the standard pistol is D. The standard pistol is bad. It does 23-24 damage, 5 shots to kill early game. That's a flippin' joke. You're not going to use the standard pistol, so just don't bother. The suppressed pistol is a decent upgrade. 26-28 damage is 4 shots to kill early game. Not as bad, but this thing is still not great. I don't see why you'd pick it over the SMGs. Hand cannon, I see a lot of people using the hand cannon, but I don't understand why. It's very perplexing. Because the hand cannon only does 75 damage to structures, so it's not like you're blasting out wood walls. And not only that, but the hand cannon... it only does 30 damage at long range, so it's just really not good. It's not the worst gun in the game, but it's not good. And the dual pistols, I'm conflicted on this one. In isolation, dual pistols are like amazing. If you only have one gun early game, they feel good. They shred. You know, 2 bursts, you're doing 160 damage. The problem is the draw speed is so slow and there's too much bloom, it can't really fit into the rolls. If you pump someone for, say, 80 damage, if you have an SMG, it takes a third of a second to draw it, and then you start spraying them. With the dualies, it takes over half a second to draw, and by that point, you've already lost down like 50 or 60 damage you could have gotten from the SMG. So the dual pistols really don't work in the SMG rule all that well. Maybe they would work if the tac shotgun was good, but the tac shotgun is not good. And then, in terms of the ARs, it's too inaccurate to really use it, so I don't think the dual pistols really fit anywhere except for early game. They are quite fun early game. So, to conclude, let's just do a quick rundown of what you should be running in Project Era. So, your shotgun, your initiation class, I'd call it. You're running a pump, heavy or double barrel. If you have a loop pump, that's the best gun. In terms of your AR class, Scar is the best, but the burst rifle and suppressed AR are also viable. SMGs, your follow-up, all 4 are viable. Your snipers, heavy is the best, but hunting and bolt are both viable. And then explodes, you have RPG, nade launch is viable, minigun is viable in squads, and then everything else, I don't think these are really worth it. They work early game, but the C and D tier guns just really, especially the D tier guns, don't use these at all. And the C tier guns are just kind of placeholders. You know, you use a tag, a scoped AR, and a suppressed pistol until you find, a heavy, a standard AR, and an LMG, for example. So that's kind of what I think on the rankings. If you disagree, feel free to comment below. I'm happy to be proven wrong and explain why I'm wrong on these rankings. But I do think the meta is in a good place. I do think the pump should be toned down slightly. Just a slight nerf to bring the pump down to A tier. I would buff the pistol and the suppressed pistol. I would honestly probably vault the semi. You could buff the damage a little bit to make it more usable. but Vault is probably not a bad idea. And then buff the Thermal. That would really help make the game a bit more interesting, have less garbage weapons, and also just give a slight haircut to the pump so there's more options that are viable in terms of shotguns. So thank you for watching this Gaming Coach video, everybody. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. As I said, feel free to leave a comment and tell me why I'm wrong. I'm happy to have a discussion about why the rankings are incorrect, and I will see you in the next Gaming Coach video.